that I read for the last 40 years. And today I have my special guest. She is a leadership and business advisor, no other than Ms. Liz Weber.
Thank you, Daniel.
Welcome to Book 101, Miss Liz. And can you please introduce more about yourself?
Sure, Daniel. Thank you again. I'm happy to be with you and your audience. So, what I do, I'm, as you said, a leadership advisor. So, I work with business owners, boards of directors, and in the C suite on three main things: strategic planning. So, I help them identify where they need to take their organizations 2, 3, 5, or more years from now. I then also have conversations with them as to, given where they're going to take their organization, what do they need to do to help their teams, their leaders, their talent pool ensure they have the right skills at the right time to do the jobs that are expected of them. So we get into workforce and succession planning. And then the third thing that I do is either one on one or one to group executive coaching, advisory services, and training to really help them develop the skills they need to do the jobs that they're expected to do.
Miss Liz Weber, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world. And today, let's talk about women in leadership, inequalities, and effective leadership. What pivotal moment made you realize you were meant to be a leader?
Ooh, that's a question I haven't been asked before. Um, I think, honestly, Daniel, the moment came when I was in college. I was a freshman, and I started taking aerobics classes because I was putting on weight in college, as many
Hmm.
freshmen do. And I started taking aerobics classes, and I realized that if I would become accredited and I could teach the class, I could then get paid to exercise. So that was my strategy to help me with my financial situation. But once I got in front of the class, I realized that I liked leading and I liked being a teacher for other people. And it's odd, but that was really a pivotal moment for me to realize that I really enjoyed leading the group as well as being a participant.
Miss Liz, thank you so much for being a leader and empowering woman all over the world. How has how has your leadership style evolved throughout your career?
Oh, it's gone through many evolutions. As I just shared, it started in college, um, and when I was getting my undergrad degree, I my undergrad degree is in international business, and I thought I wanted to be a commodities broker. Um, but I couldn't get a job in international business because I had no international experience. So I was in one of those catch 22s. So I took an internship with the U.S. Department of State in Washington, D.C., and I was very, very fortunate that the office I was interning with was basically the State Department version of the military commissary system. So it was a business office. And from the time I was 22, 23, I was given huge amounts of responsibility. Actually, Daniel, way more responsibility than I probably should have been at the time. Um, but it also taught me how to think quickly on my feet. And a key responsibility I had in that role was organizing and then providing training programs and conferences to Foreign Service nationals and Foreign Service personnel around the world that were stationed at different embassies and consulates and then working to support the US commissaries. So I was teaching non business minded people business concepts from the time I was 22, 23. And just given the nature of the work that I was doing, um, if nothing else, I had to come across as a leader because these were very seasoned professionals. And here I was, a complete newbie fresh out of college, telling them how to do something they had been doing probably for minimum six months, if not for a couple years. So um, I worked in that position for 8 years, obviously gained a lot of skill, gained a lot of experience. And then in 92, I started my own company and started out as a training company. And through the management training programs and supervisory training programs I would present, little by little, clients started asking me to take on projects with them and for them. And one of the projects, when I was asked to participate in, was the first client asked me to help them with their strategic plan. And I had never done it before. And they didn't even ask me if I knew how to do it. They just assumed I could, given the conversations we had had. And fortunately for them and for me, it turned out well. And that experience opened my eyes as to what I really liked doing, which was the strategy, the leadership, working with leaders to help them make decisions for their organizations, for their teams, for their clients. And then along the way, as far as my professional development, I can't overstate the importance of the volunteer leadership positions that I have been in, because those have been pivotal, those have been important, um, and those have had a major impact on my life, not only for the experience and the opportunities, but for the connections and the relationships with the people that I have been able to work with in a volunteer capacity, that in many instances have become friends because of the work we did together because we believed in a mission.
Believe in the mission for sure. So, what the hardest leadership lesson you have had to learn the hard way?
Um, I think the hardest lesson I had to learn was the importance of leadership communication. And it's something that I was just in Michigan this week with a client at a leadership conference, and we talked about this a lot. As leaders, we all hear about it, but the importance of communication, the importance of timely feedback, the importance of having the courage to provide feedback to a team member that might not resonate with them or sit well with them initially. But as I tell my clients, providing feedback can be the nicest thing that you do for one of your team members. And I learned the lesson the hard way, because when I was 23, 24, I don't remember exactly how old I was, but I didn't have the courage to provide feedback to one of my team members, someone I was responsible for, in a timely fashion, until she had performed in a way that was outside of the bounds of what was acceptable, and I needed to terminate her. And Daniel, because I had not done my job, I knew before I had the meeting with her that I was going to blindside her, and I knew it wasn't fair. And before that meeting, I was almost physically sick because I knew I was in the wrong, and I knew it was going to be an unfair situation for her, um, because I hadn't done my job up until that point. Um, and because of the physical reaction I had to not being courageous enough myself and not being transparent and candid with her, I had failed in my role as a leader. So I will never forget that lesson, and it's one that I try to share proactively with my clients. Don't do what I did.
Thank you for sharing that story and truly empowering, Ms. Lee. So let's talk about the challenges for women leaders. What unique challenges do women face in the leadership positions that men typically don't?
Well, we hear a lot about it, but I think most stereotypically is quite often women can be underestimated in a room, particularly if they're the only woman in the room or one of a few. I have to share in all candor, I've not had that experience myself too often. And I think, Daniel, it's because number one, I'm physically tall. I'm almost 5'11. But I also carry myself with confidence. And I learned that back in my State Department days because I had to carry myself. I was 22, 23, and often responsible for briefing Foreign Service officers or inspectors general before they would go around to the different embassies and consulates. So I had to carry myself with confidence. But to get back to your question, I think the biggest challenge most women in leadership face is initially being underestimated and then not quickly and decisively making their presence and their abilities crystal clear in the room by being succinct, by being on point, and by quickly earning the respect of the people in the room.
Ms. Liz, how do you navigate the double blind of being perceived as either too nice or too aggressive as a female leader?
I think you have to have your facts in order. When you lead with emotion, whether you're angry or whether you are trying to be too kind, you lose your objectivity, and you're not leading with the focus of the facts and the reason for either the feedback or the task that you are delegating. So when you're giving insight or direction or guidance to a team member, and you're asking them to take care of something, if you are not clear yourself as to what you're asking of them, you can either come across as either too timid or too aggressive. But when you're clear yourself as to specifically what you need them to accomplish, what is the deliverable you're asking of them, you're asking with objectivity, you're not asking with emotion. Um, if you have had a history of not being candid with feedback and suddenly you start giving candid feedback, you can well be branded with a reputation of, oh, now you're being aggressive. And you have to be comfortable with that initial backlash and simply circle back and say, well, the intent is not to be aggressive, the intent is to be clear. And if I've not done my job and been clear in the past, I apologize for that. But going forward now, I aim to do a better job in being clear with you and helping you understand where I see you are starting to go off the rails and how I can help you course correct to perform even better. So I think it's a lot about getting comfortable with yourself and not worrying about the titles that you are being brandished with, but how are you carrying yourself? How are you doing the work that's expected of you for the best of your team, for the best of your customers or members, whomever you're serving, with really a clear eye on the objective reason for what you're doing and why you're doing it.
Beautifully, beautifully articulated, Miss Liz. Totally empowering. And let's talk about the leadership philosophy. What does being a good leader mean to you beyond just achieving results?
Um, a good leader beyond achieving results is an individual that you can rely on, that you trust for the most part to have your back. And what I mean by that, the person is not perfect, but they will tell you the good, bad, and the ugly. And they will defend your positions when you've got the right intent for actions that you take, and that they keep you informed and they admit when they've made a mistake. So again, they're not perfect, but they tell you the good, bad, and the ugly, and they keep you informed, and they help you get the job done. And that, in a nutshell, is it.
Ms. Liz, as a leadership and business advisor, what are your short term and long term goals?
My short-term goals are to keep my clients happy. I've got a couple things. You're sharing my website. We've got some tweaks to get done on that and take that to a higher level. We're also looking to get my 5 stages leadership program on some association LMS systems to get that information out and share that with other organizations and other leaders. And long-term goals are to be able to speak at different conferences, share leadership insights, um, and travel and enjoy life. That's basically it.
Enjoy life for sure, and looking forward for well more and more advocacy about leadership, Miss Liz, and good luck, and looking for more well goals in life that empower people all over the world through your business. And what would be your piece of advice for those people out there want to be like you?
Um, if individuals want to do what I do, I think my advice is pay attention to the leaders around you. Start focusing on what they do well that works, what they do where they've missed opportunities to communicate effectively, where they've missed opportunities to message before they move on initiatives, um, and start applying yourself, regardless of position, um, behaviors that cause others to want to work with you more and seek you out as a resource for not only information, but to bounce ideas off of before they take action. Because I think one of my biggest strengths is I have the great honor of having some very long-term relationships with clients, um, that started in a training capacity and now is an advisory capacity. And they come to me before they go to their executive team or board to bounce ideas around. And that's really what's enabled me to do what I do. Because I have an inside track as to where their industry is leading, where their organizations are going, and where their needs are.
Thank you for that advice, Miss Liz. And can you please recommend a book or books that influence your journey?
Yeah, I think one of my favorite books is The E Myth Revisited by Michael Gerber. Um,
Yes.
it it really speaks to the need for systems, and it's one of the ideas that I've amplified in one of my books that I wrote. Something needs to change around here. But that one is obviously it's a bestseller. It's a pivotal book, and I think it's one for any leader to take a look at and not underestimate the importance of really strong, scalable systems.
Thank you for that recommended book, Miss Liz. And let's talk about the practical leadership skills. How do you handle making tough decisions that you know will be unpopular?
Um, Given what I do with so many of my clients, so many of the things that we focus on are grounded in their strategic plan. And so a core question that we talk about at the executive level often is, what needs to happen next to move the plan forward? And invariably, there are things on that plan that individuals in the company are not going to be happy about because they either have to start doing something differently. They have to stop doing something they've been doing a long time. Or a product or service is either going to go away or it's going to be started and it's going to cause a change for them and it's going to impact them. So, um, my advice is again something I alluded to earlier as far as being a leader is you need to be clear yourself as to why you are asking your team members to do something differently and why you're asking them to change. And so when it comes to the messaging of that, again, you message before you move. If you do your job well as a leader and you message well in advance of the time for them to start moving and doing things differently, you're able to minimize the amount of pushback that you get from your employees. So, in answer to your question, there are hard decisions all the time that I'm working with my clients on, but it's a matter of being intentional as to why are you making this decision. Is it to move your plan forward? Is it to improve a team culture? Maybe you have an employee that is not a good fit for the culture and needs to go. There needs to be as objective a reason as possible for you to be making a decision. So it sits well in your gut and it allows you to best fulfill the mission of the organization.
Miss Liz, how do you rebuild team trust after making a leadership mistake?
You admit your mistake.
Hmm.
Admit your mistake because the team knows you messed up. So admit your mistake and correct it and move on. You will lose more trust and you will be deemed a hypocrite and a weaker leader than they may already perceive you if you don't admit you made a mistake because they all know you did. So have the courage to admit the mistake, correct it, and move on.
Correct, correct it and let it go, people. And in your experience, do women lead differently than men? If so, how?
I don't think so. Because in my 30 something years of doing this, it depends upon the industry and it depends upon the individual. But I have worked with many, executive women and executive men and women business owners and male business owners. And for those that are effective, all have very similar traits. They're very focused, they're very driven, they're very conscientious of their teams, they're very protective of their teams. They're very much focused on developing depth in their organization and scaling, ensuring the viability of their organization. And they constantly are looking at themselves to be a better leader. Um, those that are not as strong are the ones that are either insecure or full of themselves. And as I say that, I'm kind of thinking through a number of my clients. And if Daniel, I could say anything that's stereotypical, I would say that I have experienced more female leaders demonstrating traits of insecurity than I have of male leaders demonstrating traits of insecurity. Um, but both have the same levels of intelligence, and also both sexes lack the same levels of intelligence thereof. So it's a mixed bag. It depends on the person, I think, more than the gender.
Ms. Liz, what the daily habits or practices help you maintain your leadership effectiveness?
Um, it started during COVID, but I really protect the first 90 minutes of my day. After I had my morning coffee. But I got into the habit during COVID of either 90 minutes of exercise in our gym. We have a gym in our basement, or walking. And during those times, I listen to podcasts, and that is my time, Daniel, to wake up my brain as well as wake up my body and stay strong. But invariably, regardless of the type of podcast I'm listening to, whether it's a business podcast or just something for entertainment, it never fails. Every day I hear something during the podcast that reminds me of something I need to share with a client or something I need to build into a program. So that is my big start to the day and something I try to protect.
What's one leadership skill you're currently working to improve and why?
Um, it's what I practice, what I preach with my clients. Focus on the right things at the right time to get the right impact. I continually have to remind myself to turn off all notifications, to turn off my email, and focus on one thing at a time. So I don't end up working on 4 or 5 different projects at the same time and become less efficient because of it. So it's keeping myself focused.
One day at a time and focus for sure. Miss Liz, what leadership advice would you give to your younger self just starting out?
Focus, focus. Hone the skill of really focusing on your to-do lists, your task lists, and focus on the ones that are going to drive the business forward the fastest. And don't focus on the ones that are the easiest and quickest to check off.
Miss Liz, before we wrap up our discussion for today, I'm inviting you to please do listen to my other podcast, people. My other podcast, because my abstract essay is already in fifth season, abstract poetry in second season, and my book 101 review in fifth season too. Comedy 101 in second season, and my food 101 in fifth season as well. Geography 101 in fourth season, and my baby podcast Law 101 and Mental Health 101. Love letters in third season and Movie 101 review and Music 101 in fourth season and Science 101 and Sex 101 in its first season. Please listen to them wherever you listen your podcast. So, Miss Liz, how do you want to be remembered as a leader? What's the legacy you're building?
Um, it's simply that either the clients that I've interacted with or the staff that I've had, they all feel better off for having had me in their life.
Miss Liz Weber, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world. So, can you please invite our listeners to support your business, your advocacy, or whatever projects that you're doing right now?
Sure, they are welcome to connect with me on my website and also on LinkedIn. My call sign there is Liz Weber CNC.
Yes, people, let's support Miss Liz Weber because if you support her for sure, more and more and more empowering leaders to come. So, Miss Liz, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Daniel. It's been a pleasure.
More to come, people. See you soon.